What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're talking about what is Playtest 7 for Unreal 5, coming to Squad with a 9.0 update sometime in the future. So let's talk about some of the fixes that Offworld implemented and discuss my experience. But first, subscribe, leave a like, drop a comment down below if you were able to take part in the playtest, and let me know what you think. Now, it does seem that Playtest 6 was mainly focused on trying to merge all of the things that are coming in 9.0 together and test the stability. And according to Offworld, that helped them identify and isolate areas of things to fix. That doesn't mean everything is fixed, but they did release some notes on what exactly they were able to address between Playtest 6 and Playtest 7. First, there were a bunch of vehicle fixes. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time in vehicles for Playtest 6, so some of you may be more familiar with this and the changes made than I was. This is everything from the wrong camo to certain animations being incorrect and so on. There's also a few different weapon fixes added in this update. Additionally, some role and kit fixes or updates, and also some fixes to maps and training. One that I have heard from several people is the foliage collision issue, which seems to be remedied. There's several different UI fixes, but what probably most of you are interested in is seeing something on the next tab having to do with graphics and visuals. So first, picture-in-picture scopes. The overlay now behaves correctly after revival. That seems to fix a bug where when you'd get revived, the scope was doing some wild stuff. Apparently, depth of field no longer flickers during recoil, bolting, or ADS animations. There was a UE5 engine upgrade that allows for ground textures to maintain quality when switching to picture-in-picture scopes. Performance mode, picture-in-picture, has been removed. Instead, they've added more optimizations to the picture-in-picture scopes. And for anti-aliasing options, TAA and FXAA have been re-enabled due to popular demand. So there's been plenty of bugs and things that people want to see fixed. I know some of these elements are probably the most consistent across the board, especially because it factors in a lot to picture-in-picture scopes. It is, of course, ideal to see bugs being fixed. We want to see progress in the playtests, and here is a good changelog of things that have been addressed. Playtest 6 was obviously pretty messy, and as I mentioned in my last video, it was hard for me to really feel immersed or interested in playing the playtest because I just kept running into issues, or just people around me were running into so many issues that it just was distracting. Now, with Playtest 7, what was I expecting? Maybe not the best performance, maybe not every bug being fixed, but something that was one step closer to being a playable sort of format, something that still felt immersive like it needed to be Squad. Because since actually Playtest 5, I really haven't been able to dive in and feel that immersion because of bugs and other issues. So when I started up Playtest 7, I was hoping for a better experience, and I was met with commendation tokens. A lot of commendation tokens. Just every few seconds, I got commendation tokens. So the funny thing is I didn't have my recording running in Playtest 7 when I actually saw this notification, the you earned commendation token, popping up repeatedly. Like back to back to back, I was just earning commendation tokens. But then I happened to navigate to the settings, where I found maybe the best feature added in a playtest in a minute, which was the ability to hide the commendation token notification. I was so sincerely worried that I was just going to keep getting commendations. And keep in mind, this was for everybody. Everybody was getting this notification, apparently. This was not just me. But for whatever reason, this is not something that made it to the changelog. And this is an ideal thing that needs to be just implemented and should be on by default. I don't know that disabling this helped my frame rate, but I'd like to think it did. So everyone was just getting commendation tokens constantly. It capped at 50 per round, and you were still able to deliver your commendation tokens at the end. But that's less about performance and more just something that immediately was grabbing my attention. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I actually thought it may have been punishment for some of the hallways I yelled down to try to get them just to remove the notification entirely. But I will take this as some form of win because that thing does not need to pop up on my screen 3 times while playing around, especially when I can track the progress of my tokens when I look at the scoreboard. So we didn't get off to a great start, but we had an uplifting moment there of being able to turn this off. But how was performance generally? I actually found performance to be okay. Most of my settings were actually in high this time around on a 1440 monitor, and I was recording on the same PC. And I had a little bit better experience than I've had in the last 2 playtests with frame rate. I felt the gameplay was smoother than what I had in 6, and probably smoother than what I had in 5. That doesn't mean it's perfect, but it was improved from at least those 2 playtests, which is significant because I know that in the last video that I talked about playtests, I just was running into a lot of dipping of the frames. I mean, on Al-Bazr at one point, I was sitting at close to 30 frames in playtest 6, and now I'm playing Al-Bazr and it's okay. I didn't have that significant of an issue. Now, one thing I did notice is some hitching. I don't know if it was server side, client side, or what was going on, but I did notice that to an extent. It wasn't all the time. It wasn't as significant as what I tend to see in Unreal 4, but occasionally there was just some small hitch. Now, with picture-in-picture scopes and ADSing, did it feel better? I mean, it felt better than Playtest 6 and Playtest 5. I can say that pretty clearly because, again, I was seeing such a performance dip. So while it was improved, it's still probably imperfect. I still feel like it's eating just so much up in terms of resources to use a picture-in-picture scope that if anything goes wrong, if you do have a hitch or if your frame rate dips enough, you just become, I don't know, useless in that gunfight. Now, when it comes to some of the gunplay changes implemented for Playtest 6 that are obviously consistent in Playtest 7, you started to feel those changes a little bit more because now you have the performance that allows you to sort of enjoy the gunplay a little bit better. And one of the maps that we played was Samari, which is a small map, so you should have better performance on that map, just generally. And I did feel like gunplay was a little more enjoyable than it is in Unreal 4. Just something about those tight firefights, things just feel a little bit more responsive. But again, I would remind everyone that these changes aren't like night and day changes. They are tweaks. They are adjustments to what we've become accustomed to. Now, on the Samari round, we actually had this sort of test version of skirmish where there's more flags or points to capture for either team, dividing the team across more of the map. And I thought it was pretty cool. It was fun. We had vehicles to get out of main. We were able to position. We worked off a rally. We pushed a couple radios. But it is also pretty punishing. Like, you could be losing 10 tickets if you aren't capturing certain objectives. We also had someone in the squad doing callouts, utilizing the drone and the scout class, which is incredibly strong, especially in this type of game mode. Enemy radios, lodges, vehicles moving around or coming into our area of operation. Now, I think the drone only lasts about 4 minutes and it costs 250 ammo, I think, to resupply. But I do think there needs to be some form of cooldown or else this drone is going to be up all the time. And if the enemy team is not able to counter that, they're going to be in trouble. Because we were essentially able to just resupply the drone, put it back up in the air, and be able to spot everything coming out of the enemy main, especially on a small map like Samari. They couldn't place down a radio basically without us knowing. So while in comparison to the last two playtests, I did feel like performance was better generally. And I didn't really run into as many bugs in my own personal experience, at least in comparison to the last two playtests, bugs that were just breaking the immersion entirely or making it impossible to do basic things. But I do realize that was not necessarily the case for everybody. We did run into an Epic online service issue, which basically ended up killing the servers. And that kind of sucked because we were enjoying ourselves. We were actually having fun. I think, again, it wasn't perfect, but we were sort of just, you know, going about our day in Unreal 5 instead of Unreal 4. And it seemed like a reasonable experience for a playtest. I did get in part of a Canadian Resistance Force round against PLA. And the PLA had like a ZBD and 3 ZBLs. It was a lot. And I was really interested to see how that round would play out. But of course, the EOS issue started up, so we didn't have a full server to play on. But what I really did see is a faction that still needs a buff. It still is going to need something, especially to compete against a faction like the PLA with all of their armor, and as quick as some of that armor is to get in and out of places. I mean, the CRF, the way it is set up, is kind of meant to be a really high IQ type of faction. It is a map control type of group, in my opinion, because you have speed out of main. SLs have 3 rallies a piece that you can just drop around and, you know, one at a time, and really position your soldiers to create a lot of different areas of attack. I guess I think there are some fun opportunities with that faction. I just don't know if a lot of folks are being able to see those opportunities because of how it's currently set up. Consider a public server with WPMC and how folks will just send vehicles and you'll end up losing 200 tickets and just light vehicles. Now consider that, but no tank and less good AT and mostly semi-automatic rifles. Oh, and you don't have a helicopter. Just give us a little extra something, you know? Like every time these guys roll out, they got to go all in. Now, on top of the performance and stuff like that, I did notice a couple other tidbits I wanted to share with you guys. It does seem like the UI is getting a bit of an overhaul. That was something that I noticed in the roadmap, and that is something that I saw within this playtest build, is that the UI is getting polished up some. You'll notice the gear symbol and the power button in the top right, and sort of an adjustment to everything to be centered on the home screen. And I also noticed that there are 2 weapon packs. We already talked about the Insurgent one and what we thought might be the other pack coming out. And it does seem like the second Tor pack has seen some model updates. So grab some footage of that to make sure you guys can see that. But it just appears to be primarily US-based weapons for USMC and USA that have tape and, you know, some wear and tear added to them. And this is something that has seen progress because before, in the last video I did on this, there weren't models filling in the little preview area. Now, I don't know that everyone had the same experience as I did, but I'm looking at trying to find progress between Playtest 5, Playtest 6, and Playtest 7. And I do think out of the three, this is the better one that I have played. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy other than there is some improvement, which I think is a positive. I do think this was meant to be a shorter playtest, which I kind of wish we had more time with this playtest because I do feel like this one performed better, and I think that would be good for maybe more of the general audience to have a chance to play. But since I know not everyone will get a chance to dive into this, I wanted to at least make sure I talked about some of the experience I had. So I hope that this is helpful for you guys to see kind of how things are progressing, how things are changing prior to the 9.0 update. If you liked the video, hit the subscribe button. Obviously, drop comments down below if you have any thoughts or if you were able to try the playtest. Leave a like, and I will see you all next time.